Welcome, friends, back to Terrorverse TV. I'm John Altarelli. I'm going to be your host again today. And today's topic is going to be about the rising and growing immigrant crime wave in the country and some of the issues around that. So if you like the content, as we always say, please subscribe, share, like, hit the bell for updates, and of course, most importantly, provide some comments and also suggestions for other topics to cover. So Jenna, today, our producer, is going to put a bunch of little clips up, and we're going to look at those clips, and I'm going to comment on them and put it in a greater context of what's actually going on. As you know, I did several segments on immigration in the past, one with a very good expert in this area, and then I also talked about it on another topic. But, and again, my bias on that is I'm very pro-immigration, let's put it that way, but in the right measured way, and what we're doing now clearly is not. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to start with the first clip about how we're doing on the border.
Would you call the border secure?
The border is secure.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
Venezuela. Culpa de una dictadura.
Hey, welcome back. It's your man Wise, and yes, we got to talk about it. It's undeniable that there is an invasion at our southern border, no matter how many times Democrats try to tell you there isn't. And what we're seeing here isn't just a few people looking for a better life. This is a full-blown invasion. These images aren't isolated incidents. This is happening day after day, week after week, as thousands of migrants cross our southern borders without any checks, without any vetting, and without any intent on following the laws of this country. And the Democrats, they don't just ignore it, they enable it. This isn't a crisis to them, it's an opportunity. They've thrown open the doors and told the world, come on in, take what you want, do what you want, because we're not gonna do a daggone thing to stop you. And who's left to pick up these pieces? People like you and I, the American people. We're the ones who pay the price for their reckless, irresponsible policies. We're the ones whose communities are flooded with crime, whose jobs are taken, whose safety is compromised. So who exactly is coming through our southern border right now?
Let's cut it off.
Let's take.
So this is a topic that I raised several other times in other podcasts or other clips. One of the issues that we're talking about is, whether the border's closed or open or whether it's being managed properly. It's clearly not closed, and it's clearly not being managed properly. I have friends in the law enforcement community and also in Homeland and other agencies that are working on the border issue. They're very frustrated. There are laws already in place that could handle this situation, but they're not being enforced. President Biden has revoked a bunch of orders that were in place for decades, or not decades, but certainly at least over a decade, and has made it so inviting for people to come here undocumented, cross the border, get services, get the ability to stay in housing, money, health care. They want education, and the Democrats even try to get them to be able to vote. And clearly they're also fighting all of the voter ID laws, because we're one of the few countries you can look around the world, other than maybe China and Russia, and we don't want to compare ourselves to them. All of Europe, pretty much all of the world requires identification to vote. We're the only major Western country that doesn't. And that is, clearly a reason for that is that you want to have people, you want to be able to sort of manipulate the elections. That's clear. Otherwise, why would you not have it? Everyone has a license. The whole notion that it's racist is so baloney. And even if black people are sort of let themselves be used as tools for that, that's tragic. To say that they don't know how to get a license, they can't get an ID card, that's ridiculous. In any event, the border's a problem. And when I talked about it before, I said, I'm not sure what the crime has gone up, or whether some of the things that Trump said about Venezuela and the jails, the New York Times called him a liar, and now we're going to see that he wasn't really a liar. He may have exaggerated a bit about dumping the entire criminal system out there, but clearly Venezuelan gangs have come in here in droves, and they are now creating havoc. I live in New York, and I got to tell you, it's bad here, and I certainly don't want to be in Colorado at this point, and some other places, Texas and others. These gangs are now forming, organized crime groups. They're actually preying on both the immigrant population, which is tragic, the good people that are coming here that really trying to get a better life for themselves, and on also the people in the neighborhoods where they're throwing these migrant shelters. And what is that typically? It's typically low-income American neighborhoods or people who are also struggling with social needs. And you'll see in Colorado, that's exactly where they tried to take over a complex that was really a complex for people very low income and probably on state assistance and the like. So let's run to the next clip. This one I think is about New York, right, Jen?
Yes.
Okay.
Of migrants is largely behind the surge in crime in Central Park. In fact, one of the suspects, just 11 years old. Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini has been on the story all day. And Steph, we're wondering what the very latest is on this.
So new details. We just got images of two suspects police are looking for. The NYPD says these two males are connected to this young migrant robbery pattern here in Central Park. It's alleged they targeted two 20-year-olds on Tuesday night and forcibly took 3 chains, a hat, and a vape. This developing story includes at least 10 cases here in Central Park. The suspects, all migrants, according to police. By the entrance of Central Park at 59th and 7th, a visual police presence.
It is surprising to see a lot of police. I feel like, I don't know, a police presence mostly makes me feel safe.
In this video released to Fox 5 News by the NYPD, you see a group of young males believed to be migrants allegedly on their way to commit a crime. The NYPD says a current young migrant robbery pattern is a driving force behind the increased boots on the ground here.
Until we fix this, we'll be out there.
NYPD Chief of Patrol John Schell says at least 10 cases are connected to young migrant suspects who he says are concentrating on the southern part of the park. Detectives say the suspects are working in groups of up to 12, targeting victims for whatever they can get. And they're young kids, including an 11-year-old just arrested in a different crime yesterday, connected to all this by credit cards.
When he was arrested yesterday, was on video using credit cards that were taken from the robberies in Central Park.
Fox 5 here yesterday watching dozens of cops converge on Central Park in response to the recent robberies. But today, not everyone seems to be aware of the increased police presence. Did you notice more cops today?
We actually didn't. I haven't noticed any. No, just walked into the park right now.
The park is a large area. Those who work here understand the need to keep it safe. Pedicab operator Kenny Winter is on alert.
You can arrest them all you want, but if you're not going to prosecute them, what's the point?
He welcomes the police presence, but thinks more needs to be done to curb the robberies and crime overall. We've reported NYPD statistics show an increase in crime in the park overall, with a 200% increase in robberies specifically this year so far compared to last. These two young women are both 20, the same age as some of the recent victims we reported on as we're covering this young migrant robbery pattern.
I feel like, I don't know, a police presence mostly makes me feel safe.
And hearing that they're young people that are doing this, is that surprising to you at all?
It is, honestly. I wouldn't expect that.
Officials stressing Central Park is one of the most iconic locations in the world, and this will not be tolerated. Now, when it comes to those robbery stats, police say earlier in the year it was local robbers. The cops telling us they cleaned that problem up, and now it's this young migrant robbery pattern they're working. Back to you inside.
All right, let's finish that up. Okay, so this is something we were trying to find out earlier to see what the stats were and what's going on. So 200% increase, that's significant. The fact that they're preying on people in Central Park and the southern end of that. So if you know anything about New York City, the southern end of the park is really the main area where tourists will go in. It's the main entrance. The northern parts, east and west side, are typically more used by local people. So they're definitely preying on tourists at some level. Of course, they're also messing around with residents, but that's really a bad thing for New York. I mean, New York really needs to get its act together because people come here from all over the world. And the last thing we want to do is to show them we can't even handle our own situation at home. And what kind of a signal are we sending to the world about New York City? And it's been getting worse and worse and worse. Over the last two Democratic administrations, New York City has become more dangerous, more filthy, and a less desirable place for people to come and visit. And I live here. I've been here for over 30 years. I know the difference. I was here in the 70s when things were just as bad, maybe worse, and then they got cleaned up, and now they're going back in that direction. And it's really about policy. And when you put together a policy of not arresting people, you've raised the limit on shoplifting, you're allowing rampant gangs to do mass shoplifting, you're not going to deal with protests, you're going to let them do a lot of damage to places, you're not going to keep people in jail, you're just going to catch and release, actually sort of the New York City version of the border. No bail, no reason to keep people in jail. Well, there's no fear. And if you're an illegal immigrant with no papers, why would you care at all? You're going to get released. You don't care. What do you care about a record? You're probably not even using your real name, and you'll be impossible to track. There is no reason why people won't do this if they are inclined to be criminals. And I don't subscribe, or I don't believe that this is people who are doing it to survive. There may be some of that, and I'm very sympathetic to that. I do feel for people who are suffering, but this is not that. These are gangs. They're being organized by gangs, and it's blatant robbery and criminality, and it's got to stop. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to get worse and worse. A lot of people are going to get hurt, and it's going to really adversely affect who, again, are people who are visiting the city. So it's our tourist population, and it's our lower income people in New York who are suffering the most because this crime is mostly in their neighborhoods, and that's really problematic. So let's go to another clip here, see how bad it is, because it gets worse. Sorry.
To that story that's grabbing the entire nation's attention. Fox 31, the first to obtain these videos of alleged gang activity at Aurora apartment complexes. Mayor Mike Kaufman telling Fox News gangs have pushed out property management through intimidation and are collecting rent.
Police in Denver also on high alert. We spoke to Mayor Mike Johnson about how the Mile High City is tackling these issues. Fox 31's Aaliyah Sims getting some answers for us tonight. Aaliyah.
Yeah, Erica, Mayor Mike Johnston said Denver police have already been working with federal, state, as well as other local agencies because they were made aware of the problem early on. Now, he says while there's no evidence of Denver apartments being taken over by Venezuelan gangs, he says they are providing a heavier police presence in areas that are a risk.
Yes, and it's infuriating. It should never happen in this state. It should never happen in Denver.
That's Mayor Mike Johnston's reaction to the many videos that continue to make headlines about Venezuelan gang violence in the Denver metro area.
Obviously, that video was not taking place in Denver, and we are going to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't ever.
In a statement, Denver police appear to indicate the same, saying they take the presence of the TDA gang seriously. While DPD says they believe there are reasons members of the gang are tied to crimes in the area, the department says they are not aware of any apartments being taken over by.
Clip because I think there's duplicate. Okay, let's go to the next clip anyway, because I don't want to. It's the same. It's an obvious what's going on. Let's do another clip here. Yeah, this one was really tragic. Man, I couldn't believe watching this.
Parece Betty la fea. ¿Qué pasó? Hey, pero ¿por qué me paraba a mí? Claro, está el carajito para el niño. El niño pasa.
So look what's going on. So these two cops are trying to get detain or apprehend this one migrant, and look what happens. They get booted, kicked. The whole gang of people come after him. This is right, I believe, at somewhere around Times Square, sort of, and no one, of course, is helping the cops. They're all standing around watching and let these guys just wail on him. Let's stop this clip. I can't even watch it anymore. It's terrible. The New York cops have it bad. They have a tough job. They're the best in the world. I love my New York City Police Department. I have lots of friends there, and I talk to them all the time about these issues, and they are disgusted. A lot of them have retired. They don't want anything to do with the police force anymore, the mayor and the management, because they can't do their jobs. They can't They can't call ICE in when they have someone who's undocumented, which would normally get them deported. They can't report them. They can't do anything. And they're basically allowed to just run wild. So if you're going to run wild, you're going to have gang activity. I mean, they already have that when the cops are able to do that. Can you imagine if they're not allowed to do it? And now they have the cops physically and at risk and have their lives at risk, and nothing can be done about it. This has got to stop, and it's really horrific. And if you know the liberal news media doesn't want to report on this stuff at all, it's here, it's happening, and it's not being overblown by any stretch of the imagination. I've talked to the people. It's really bad. Let's do another clip. Let's flip to another one. See what else we have here. That's the New York cops one. Is there another one? I hate to bore you with all these clips, but I think it's important that you see this is not an isolated one-off thing like the Democrats would like to have you believe.
So they'll let this ad play out.
All right. So the numbers are growing. The danger is growing. The problem is not being solved. The sanctuary cities are asked for and are going to get it. And here's what's happening. I did think it was funny, though, that the new gangs are displacing the old gangs. So maybe there'll be a class action lawsuit by the old gangs in New York why they can't, they're having their bread and butter taken away from them by the migrants. Sorry about that joke. It's sort of bad, but it is kind of strange. And look how much money New York's spending on this stuff. It is unbelievable. What was it, 55? It's 50, oh, $5 billion. Oh, my God. $5 billion. Unbelievable. This is more money they spent on COVID. And there's our mayor. Great job, Eric. The worst is behind us. There's a little bit of a lie. Where's the New York Times when you need them now? Yeah. All right, let's do this one. This is kind of cool. Then we'll kind of wrap it all up with some comments.
Have you guys heard about what's going on in Aurora, Colorado?
I mean, they're taking over the city. They're taking over apartment complexes. And this is happening all over, just not Colorado. But the Colorado thing caught the imagination because there were many of them with the biggest weapons that you've ever seen.
So this is a gang from Venezuela called Tren de Agua. And what happened in Venezuela is the government let a bunch of these dudes out of prison and sent them to go cross the border, to come over here. Thanks, Venezuela. And now they're taking over whole apartment complexes out there in Aurora, Colorado. And they're doing a lot of damage in New York. And El Paso, Texas is on high alert right now because of how much damage they're doing out there. But America already has its own organizations and criminal elements, and none of them are taking too kindly to any of this. One in specifically who's been rumored to be stepping up, and we're going to talk about that right now, is the Hells Angels. So the Hells Angels are one of the first and one of the most powerful biker MCs on the entire planet. And if they're coming for you, it's already guaranteed that you need to stop, drop, roll, dig a little hole, crawl inside it, and probably die before they get their hands on you. I've worked with some of these dudes, and they were great to do business with because they acted very professionally, but they are definitely no joke, and you do not want to piss these dudes off. And the internet is...
All right, show the one where one of the guys, I guess maybe it's later in the clip there, the guy goes off on a little bit of rant, say he's coming. You have that? I'm going to tell you a little story about my own experience with 1%ers. It wasn't good, by the way. I'll save some of it for my memoirs. All right.
Politics, it's not really my business. I am not a member of their organization. But what I will say is that there is the potential for this to go higher and higher and escalate if these ops want to escalate the situation with them. In fact, other chapters from around the country have already issued a public warning to this Venezuelan gang if they don't stop, cease, and desist, like, immediately.
Let this be a lesson to the gang members in Aurora, Colorado. Please heed my warning. I did 10 years in the joint in the state of Kentucky. I'm telling you right now, the people that are coming, known as the Hells Angels, are not to be fucked with. You are getting ready to have a large swarm of men who are like-minded, brotherhood-driven, and will not govern themselves by the laws in which that you think that they will. you are getting ready to have or that you have never experienced in your life. And people that live on a certain side of the law may be perceived as whatever, but I promise you this, we know that you're taking advantage of defenseless people. You will be the ones calling the law, because you do not want men like me and the people that we associate with to descend upon you, because we will not care about evidence, we will not care about any of that shit. There will be guns, there will be knives, and there will be no more time for questions. Please leave before you force the hand of a power that you do not know the extent of how far it reaches. If you try to meet them with any type of resistance, you will die. You will die in the street. They are gonna fuck you up.
Now, I don't know about y'all, but I got that message.
All right, so yeah, that's you may think that that's like a little bit over the top, but I got to tell you, I'll tell you a little story about my own history. So I grew up in Derby, Connecticut, not the greatest town, small, poor, mostly immigrants, but we happened to have, I don't know how they managed to get there, but we had the clubhouse for a motorcycle club called, by the way, they don't like to be called gangs, they like to be called motorcycle clubs, MCs. There was an MC called the Huns. I don't know if they're still around. This is over 50 years ago. And they had their clubhouse in town. And I can tell you, these are one percenters. One percenters are ones they mean like 1% of society that are not going to conform to any law. They only conform to their own law. These guys were bad news. And they're not even on the level of the Angels, the Hells Angels, the Mongols, or some of these other, the Outlaws. Those guys are at a whole nother level of both organization and ruthlessness when it comes to to violence. Although I have to say, most of the violence that they do is amongst other gangs. They're not really, or in their business dealings, and I don't want to get into what their business dealings are. That's up for them to decide. They are very well organized, and they have very strict code, and they enforce it. In any event, the Huns in my little town, they had a clubhouse there, and our little town was not prepared. Our police department was not prepared to deal with them. And there was a shootout. There was cops beat up. I think one was even killed. I have to remember if that was one was even killed. And it was like right on the middle of the street, right in like downtown. I never forget that. We had this massive fight between the Huns and police. They had to call in other cities and the state police and the like, and it was unbelievable. But these guys are not afraid of the police at all. They don't care. They are on their own. They will fight at a drop of a hat. They are not afraid to die, and they're not afraid to kill. Now, do we want that? Do we want to be proud of that as Americans? No, probably not. But I mean, it's pretty bad when we have to resort, or the theory that we're going to resort to, coming where our sort of most, notorious outlaws in America are going to have to come to the defense of the police because the police are not allowed to do their job. And they're going to come in and do this. Now, I know that there was a lot of talk about it, and we'll finish up this with the last clip later in a minute. But this thing about the Hells Angels is not true. Hells Angels have come out and did a statement saying that they're not coming. You never know, maybe they will, but that's not their gig. They're not going to end up becoming law enforcement because they don't believe in the law. So they're not going to do that. I think if they had to protect themselves, they would, or if they if they happen to be there at a place and time where this happened in front of them, I don't think they would stand back. Some of these guys actually do a lot of good stuff. They do these bike runs where they make bikes for kids. I mean, they're not bad guys. I mean, some of them are just decent guys, but it's a code. It's what they live by. I've known some of them, and they were good guys. I've also known some of them not so good guys, and I ran into a gang of them when I was a youngster. I made a mistake of beating a guy in pool one time at a bar and thinking that I could, walk out of there as a winner, and it didn't kind of go down that way. And they took an unkind shine to me, and they did a pretty good job on me in the back alley. And I got to tell you, it wasn't fun, and I worried that I wasn't going to make it out. But anyway, these are tough guys, and they don't put up much stuff, and I really don't want them involved. This is not a good thing. I'm not proud of that. I don't want Hells Angels and coming out there to have to deal with our problems because our police force is being hamstrung. But I just thought it was quite funny that that's the response. No one else is going to do anything. We got to call in the Hells Angels. This is unbelievable. So is there one more clip, Jen, that shows that this thing was sort of debunked?
I'm your host for the evening. The Hells Angels are not going to save people that are not club members. Unless it was something on the spot, like something happened right in front of them, a child was getting harmed, or a woman or something like that, and they're going to step in to help them. But never were they going to gather up and ride to a certain state to fix a problem that the police have washed their hands of. They and all outlaws view themselves as functioning outside of the law. Not just saying that you're a straight up criminal, but just that you live outside of the law of the land. You live by the bylaws of your club. This goes for all 1% outlaw motorcycle clubs. Now, the internet is such a powerful tool, both positive and negative. All of these people online, 4 clicks, did the same thing a couple years ago when Antifa took over Portland and Seattle. There was video after video after video. They were saying that the Hells Angels are coming to save the day. Some were saying that the Hells Angels actually went over there and pulled them out of there, that Antifa was cleared out of that area. Did it ever happen? No. The truth is, President Trump or the Hells Angels are not going to save you. Only you can save you. Stop waiting for heroes to show up, because Batman is not coming. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. But seriously.
So I'll wrap up with this a little bit. So let's just sort of recap here. We have a problem with undocumented migrants, illegal immigrants, whatever term you want to use. It has been exacerbated to a large extent by the Biden-Harris policies at the border. For whatever reason, I have my own views as to what that's all about. It's all about getting additional members for census. It's all about getting more money to your favorite little, Democratic towns, although you're also strapping them with huge, burdens and costs, so you're not really helping them. It's all about hopefully getting the next generation of voters. We all know that most of the first-generation immigrants typically swing left because those are the people who are pandering to them and bringing them in and giving them all these bennies. The census is based on illegal, on the numbers of people here, even if they're illegal. So the number of seats that you get in the Congress, in the House, depend on the census. And so if you have a bunch of illegal immigrants in your state, you can get more seats. And clearly California and New York and other states would love to do that. And it also has to do with the Electoral College, which, as you know, if we're down to 6 swing states, if you can pack those states full of immigrants, you're going to get more Electoral College votes, and therefore you can swing elections. So if you don't think this is part and parcel of election interference, then you're just unwilling to sort of deal with the facts. And then if you throw in there the fact that there's no voter ID, you have mail-in ballots, you're not allowed to ask whether people are documented or not, and there's going to be more. We're going to have another problem at the election. If it's a tight one, I think either side will claim voter fraud, and we'll be right back where we started after the last 2 elections, frankly. I mean, Hillary Clinton claimed Trump stole the election, said that for years. I think he's still saying that. Nevertheless, these are not helpful. If you want fair elections, then get ID cards. Make sure absentee ballots are correctly used and not the way they're being used now. So there's ways to fix it, but no one wants to do that if you're a Democrat, because this is part and parcel of your strategy. Now, the fact that we're trying to call in that people are so desperate in this country that we're looking to the Hells Angels to save us from these crazy policies of the Democrats, it is tragic. It is tragic. And in the cities that are letting themselves burn up in flames and let this happen should be ashamed of themselves. And the people in those cities, they deserve it if they don't want to do something about it. If they keep voting for the same people, then they deserve what they get. And that's where this country's going to go. You're going to see it's going to be divided, where people who think that they're doing a great job with their virtue signaling and they get their towns overrun and just destroyed, they'll have to deal with that. And they'll either fix it or they'll have to live in the consequences. And the rest of the country is going to take a different point of view, and they're going to protect their cities. They're going to treat these things the way they should be. If it's lawlessness, they should be arrested. They should be put in jail. And if you're illegal and you don't have a status, a proper status to be here, then you need to be deported until you get a proper status. And then for those that are here, we have to do everything we can to sort of go through and figure it out. And it's going to take decades probably, or at least it's going to take a decade to deal with 10, 14, 20 million, depends on whatever it is, the number, depends on who you go to, but it's certainly 10, and it's probably closer to 20, already immigrants that have to be processed to see what their status is, whether they're going to stay or they're going to go, whether they meet one of the sort of one of the programs. Are they truly refugees? Are they truly, do they fit a category? And we'll see. We'll see if they do or not. I think for the most part they probably don't. So there's going to be a problem there. But of course, we'll probably change the rules so that we let them all in. And that's fine, I guess, if we need to do it on a one-time basis and then sort of come up with a rational policy going forward, which I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of fixing what we've got here and then dealing with it, on a more measured basis going forward. But bringing in Hell's Angels to be police force for us is crazy. And that's why you're going to give rise to the groups like the Proud Boys and maybe other types of groups, Antifa. The more we have militant groups outside of the law, okay, because we are hamstringing our own law enforcement efforts or we're politicizing the law enforcement efforts, then you're going to end up with these types of things, which you see, by the way, in many other countries. There was for a long time, I don't think people remember, but there was like the Red Brigade. There was all these things in Europe, Germany, Italy, France. They have a bunch of these groups. They were domestic violence groups, not even from foreign countries. And now we've got, on top of that, we've added on these sort of terrorist groups from other countries that are coming in to actually even compete for, the violence within a country or the criminality within a country, which you're seeing in New York, where you have a whole new group of criminals to displace the existing criminals. It is unbelievable. It's tragic. It's something that people should stop, just making believe it doesn't exist. Stop letting, Kamala and the left sort of make believe there's no problem. I mean, it's a problem. And you got to stop being in denial. It is a problem, and we need to fix it. And this denial and the left-wing media who does nothing at all to report on this stuff. You have to go dig it up, this stuff. I mean, some of this stuff got so bad that even they couldn't help but report on it. But for the most part, they've been saying, oh, there's no criminality. There's not a lot of this. You're all making it all up. Most of these people are great. No one's doing anything wrong. Well, come to New York. I'll take you around. There's 200 plus shelters here. You want to go around New York? You want to see what it looks like? It ain't great. And even that's sort of being hidden because where are they putting it? They're putting it in low-income neighborhoods, places where the average, New Yorker isn't hanging out, and we're shifting the entire burden of this to the people in our city who are the least able to deal with it or should have to deal with it. They're already struggling, and we don't need to add to their problems. And yet we are, and no one's doing anything about it. So I will sort of get off of this, but I just wanted to point out, we're starting to get the data. You see crime's up 200% in New York. We'll be tracking the data. I'll be talking to my people in law enforcement and Homeland and the other agencies that deal with this. We're going to expose the data as we get it. We're going to stop letting the people that are responsible for this lie about it. And we're going to make sure that American people can figure out the truth. And if they have the truth, then they're going to have to decide on the right policies. And I hope that they do. And I hope that the policies are both humane. They are pro-immigrant, because I'm a pro-immigrant, but they're also pro-United States, pro-America, pro the people who are being exploited the most. And there's a balancing act that has to be done. But it's not what we're doing today. And the fact that this is now a political football and people are calling Trump a liar and they're saying he's exaggerating, he's not. This is the one place I have to agree with him on 100%. He is not exaggerating the situation at the border. And he hasn't been exaggerating it for 8 years, if not more. And it's been a disaster. And people are just in denial because they hate Trump. I get it. You hate Trump. I don't like him anyway, but it doesn't matter. I care about this country. I don't care about the politicians. I care about the people. And I think if the people are being harmed, then we need to do something about it. And if you have politicians that are not willing to protect them, please don't let them be in charge. And if you do, it's going to get worse. And hopefully, if you do go that way, I hope it comes to your hometown so you can see what it's like. Because my hometown is being destroyed, and I am not happy about it. And I hope that you feel the same way and protect your hometown as well. And at some point, we'll talk about the gun situation. The fact that these how in the world are these people getting guns, right? Now, I know we talked about this before. In New York, they're actually trafficking through food, through the shelters, which is ridiculous. But in New York, you can't get a gun legally, right? It's almost impossible to get a gun legally. So how are the civilians in this city going to protect themselves when the gangs have guns all over the place? And not just any guns. You've seen some of those guys have AR-15s, look like they were some AK-47s. I'm not sure. I saw one that didn't look like an AR-15, looked like another one. And in fact, they're heavily armed. And none of those weapons are legal in New York. I think New York has an eight bullet cartridge limitation. And so those guns all probably have 15, 20 capacities, and there's no way they would be allowed. And an AR-15, I don't even know if you can get that in New York. Certainly it's hard enough just to get a handgun. But it's unbelievable. And if New York citizens don't wake up and start to figure out how to get themselves armed to protect themselves, they're going to end up, if the cops can't protect themselves, how are you going to protect yourself? So I would encourage you to sort of also pay attention to these laws that are preventing law-abiding citizens from carrying a weapon to protect themselves. And I know you're just going to bring up, well, there was just another shooting yesterday. Yes, there was, and that is tragic as well. And I blame the parents. I don't blame the weapons. If a parent of a 14-year-old allows your 14-year-old to get an AR-15 out of the closet, well, you got a problem. I have weapons, and I keep them all locked up in a safe, and I'm the only one with the combination. And that thing will die with me. They'll have to get a torch to cut it open. No one gets in there. No one. I have children, and they're never going to be around those guns. They're never going to get a chance to get them. And that's what you're supposed to do as a parent. And those parents need to be held accountable for allowing their children to get these guns. The same one like the guy who shot, Trump. That guy never should have had a chance to get a weapon. And of course, you can also look at the failing of that recent shooting, because the police, the FBI, they'd already been to this kid's house. They already knew he was a problem. His parents knew he was a problem, and they did nothing about it. And that's another thing that's got to stop. So and so here it is. All the gun laws in the world didn't prevent that. And there's gun laws out there, and it just goes to show it's not the laws, okay? It's the people, and the people you got to deal with are the ones who are committing the crimes. Parents who are irresponsible about how they store their weapons, and they should be held accountable. If your car hits someone, doesn't matter. Even if you were driving, you're liable. You own the car. Same thing with guns. And I think that's appropriate law. I'm a Second Amendment advocate, but I am not a Second Amendment, extremist where can't have any laws. We absolutely should have laws. And the laws are, if you own a gun and somebody gets killed with it, then you're responsible. Should you have insurance? Yeah, unless you want to go bankrupt every time something happens with one of your guns. Anyway, I went a little bit off topic on that, but that's something that's sort of an ancillary topic along with all this lawlessness. So I'm going to sign off. Jen, I want to thank you again for doing the clips. It's a lot of work to put all this together. She does a wonderful job, and she's going to help me put something together for the next show. In the meantime, I'm going to say God bless. Be safe out there. Please be careful. For all you law enforcement guys, boy, I feel with you. I'm with you. And by the way, if you're on the street and you see cops getting beat up, jump in there. Don't be afraid. They need help, and you should never let the police in your town get beat up by a bunch of gang members. And I know you're probably worried about getting hurt, but you know what? You're going to get hurt anyway if they can come after you, and the cops can't even protect you. So, if you're an able-bodied man, get in there, or even a tough, able-bodied woman if she wants to jump in. I'm not going to I'm not going to separate anyone from their duties if they want to. So click. Subscribe, hit the like button, share the video, send me comments, tell me how crazy I am, and in any event, I will try my best to help bring more truth, more facts, more reality to this stage, and hopefully people can decide how they want to vote and how they want to live, their lives going forward. So thank you very much. God bless. Jen, sign us off. Thank you.